Ooh, ooh, ooh. WDBFradio.com. WDBFradio.com.
Steve the Bookman Eisenstein has been involved in buying, selling, and appraisals of rare books since 1968. This show has been designed with making money for the listeners in mind. More people know the value of coins, stamps, objects of art, and collectibles they do not own than the values of the books in their home library shelves. Now, here's Steve the Bookman Eisenstein.
Welcome back, my fellow Rare Bookians. We are talking with Mike Redler of Autographs 101. You can reach Mike at Autographs 101 on TikTok, Facebook, or Instagram. You can talk to us right now by picking up a phone and dialing 888-575-4394. That's 888-575-4394 for on air. You can reach me off air on a landline at 305-868-5515. Mike, I'm going to show you something because, again, this will be on YouTube later today. So this is like just a little bit, but I'll explain to the audience also. This, I don't know if you can read the title from there, but I'll show you the title page. I've had this reference book waiting for the day that I would ever use it. It's never happened. And what I'd like to talk about this segment is reference books and materials for autographs, people, especially if you're new. Do you ever see this catalog?
I've seen some like it, not that particular one.
Yeah, okay. When I'll tell you something that really has amazed me about it. I've looked it up. It's 1880 something. Let me see if I can get it exactly. Handbook of Facsimiles of Famous Personage, compiled by C.H. Geigy, Basel. It was published with Basel in 1925. For some reason, I thought it was older than that. This book online, if you find copies of it, it's like $25. It's nothing. I mean, it's just fun. It's a nice old leather-bound book. And I keep saying, yeah, maybe one day I'll find something, but not really, because the facsimiles mean that they're in collections somewhere. So I often give a list of half a dozen books or so and tell people why they're important, if you have a budget for reference. So looking at it in two directions. One is for the autograph person that's on a budget and they can only afford, I don't know, $50 and down for reference. And then other people might have a bigger budget and it's unlimited. So when you're talking about newer or out of print antique, not antique, autograph reference books, talk about those.
So some of the older ones, or are you thinking just in general?
Like right now, if someone wanted to start collecting, what would you recommend as a first book? And then some of the other books, like what do I use American Book Prices. If I'm using books, again, it's all online, but if I'm using books, American Book Prices current, how to identify first editions, nom de plumes, I mean, every reference subject you could think of related to books. What's in your library? What did you start out with reference books for the autograph dealer?
So I started off with some more like magazine type ones. I used to get magazines that would have reference points. I believe from Beckett used to have a really nice one. There was just a couple that I had growing up, but it was different age, right? When I was younger, my family wasn't really that into like computers. Actually, when I first brought up starting a Facebook group, my family was like, "You shouldn't do that. That would be a terrible idea."
Is this the kind of stuff you're talking about?
Ironically,
Saunders
yes.
and Beckett's. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So I've seen like that kind of one. There's also some that are more, they're like thinner. They're like actual old school magazines you get mailed to your house,
Mm-hmm.
like almost like a subscription. It was more, I guess the autograph hobby and sports cards, they're a little bit more fluid in the sense that, every year there's a whole new set of kids that come out of college and they're all rookies. And the rookies are very highly desirable because they have a lot of hype, but they haven't played yet. So there's been no downside. You can't see that they're going to fail or that they might be a bust or whatever it might be. So it has to constantly be evolving, and books are only as static as the time that they're printed, right? So you need
Oh,
iterations.
shit. Hold on one. Tell him I'm on the air. I'll call him later. Tell him to call the show. Yeah. Call the show. 888 888 575 4394. By, I don't know if he's going to call the show. Thorne Donnelly is a very good friend and a rare book dealer. He owns Liberty Books in Palm Beach. We used to share a booth, then he got his own booth. But going back to it here, like, I don't know if you could see it up there. Presidential autographs by Hamilton, the two
Steve, you got a
volumes.
phone call?
Okay. Who's on the air?
David Glendy of 49. How are you doing?
David, perfect timing. Okay. You just called. Thorne just called. That's magnetic. I wish I could do that in a lottery. David, let me introduce you. The audience knows you. David Glendy, One of a Kind Auctions, has been on the show many times. We know each other forever. David, meet Mike Redler. Mike Redler, meet David Glendy.
Hey, David, how are you?
My good.
I think you two guys should get together. That's the bottom line. Where you're in California right now?
Yeah, we went on a a little trip the other side. I mean, from Miami to California.
Well, thank you for taking time out to call on a vacation. Tell your kids and your wife we appreciate it.
Of course, of course. It's just a little earlier here.
Yeah,
But
true,
it's
true,
great.
true.
Actually, I was listening to your conversation. It is quite interesting, even using the AI. And now I know right now you were even mentioning about books and resources and references and things like that. Of course, for me, growing up and everything was Charles Hamilton. He's was considered the great autograph expert and had created some great books for that type of thing. And they're still highly collectible, even the volume 1 and 2 of American autographs happens to be, I think, a great set even today from a reference perspective. I mean, it's not about value in that one. It's just showing you examples and exemplars and things like that.
I'll tell you something from that book. But you guys both know that book pretty well. Out of all the presidents, it's a trivia contest question to my guests, okay? Out of all the presidents listed in Hamilton's American Autographs, Volume 1 and 2, which president had the most changes in their handwriting and the most pages representing the handwriting changes throughout their career? What president?
Probably Kennedy, I would imagine, in that set.
No, go ahead. Mike?
So it's not.
I don't
No, it's
know.
not Kennedy.
I would probably
No, it's not
guess like maybe like Woodrow Wilson.
No, Nixon.
Franklin Roosevelt.
Nixon, okay, and I'll explain it, and I'll justify it. If you go
Okay.
from Washington to whoever the last one is, Carter, Ford in there. So in the case of George Washington, they have the scribe 1, scribe 2 samples and his samples at different times. And your average president took 2 pages, 2.5 pages in that massive tome. A couple of them, like Kennedy and a few others, 4 or 5 pages. Nixon was 13.5 pages of variations in samples in his handwriting during his lifetime. And more so, there's on the left side of one page, it's a right-hand page, but it's the left-hand side of the page, if I remember it right. There's about 6 different samples of his signature right around Watergate. And the more pressure he was under, the tighter the scroll became. So, when I started looking through that book, like any other book that's a reference book like that, I'll read it from, I won't use it I'll use it as a reference book, but I'll read it from page to page until, I get through it and then, use it when I need it. So I noticed that Nixon had 13 and a half pages. So the answer to that question is Nixon. And we're going to give the trivia contest question one more time. In book selling, what do the abbreviations AEG stand for in book selling? And just so you know, it's David and I have had these conversations about what the book is worth in each market. What do you guys say? Talk, David, something for Mike, Mike, something for David,
I mean, yeah, I definitely think that they've always been an asset, to our community, in terms of being able to gather information about what autographs should look like, to be able to compare. One of the biggest things that we kind of take from in our group is the ability to be able to match up with other autographs. And so it's almost like some of the stuff that we do in our communities have been mirrored by some of these books from the past, and now we kind of do it in more of a community platform as well.
Well, and I find that interesting. Now, one thing I noticed, with the Autographs 101, now it's a lot of contemporary autographs, modern autographs. Of course, you have sports, which is, probably the largest, one of the largest groups, within it. But historical, there seems to be, and this has been going on for a while, less people may be interested in it from a collectible perspective. I did see a jump with it during COVID, actually, with younger people, which was interesting. The only thing is, it was a lot about flipping, if you know what I mean. It was a lot about people thinking, well, I can buy it here and sell it here, and they were even using other platforms for that. What's your thoughts on that, Mike, as far as the collectible, what they're collecting in the future and just where you see it?
I think it's really great that people are starting to be able to dive into the past, whether it be in sports or, obviously some of these political figures in the past and kind of getting more involved. I think there's just been a trend in general of some younger people getting more involved in the political spectrum in general. And so I think that's kind of driven them to go look at the past and then, kind of see some value in some of these collectibles. But there's actually even been some recent like sports card, or should I say, political card sets that have been made by some of the major card companies that have autographs that are in the cards, of some of some of the past presidents and some of the biggest figures in without history.
But these are facsimile autographs.
No, these are real.
When they
they're real.
They're getting them and they're encapsulating them in a sense with TSA, JSA, Beckett, whatever, and
it's more modern presidents. I would think it's more modern presidents. That's an interesting observation. I'm going to concur with it to a degree that I see more political. I see more popular autographs in Autographs 101 than vintage. And I can give you an answer to that. Actually, Captain Hook and I were talking about this earlier today. It's popular culture versus historical appreciation. And what is a better example of that than what happened in an auction at the top 25 auction lots last week? $9.1 million for Superman and $1.2 million for a first edition of a Shakespeare. So, to my mind's eye, it should be the other way around. But we actually posted a couple of posts about that to get comments from people. And that was the answer. The popular culture is dominating markets today, whether it's books or autographs, based on what I see selling in both fields, versus that which we might say would be more historically important. But I would attribute that to, unfortunately, the reading levels of our kids and things these days. They're the ones that are coming up, and whether they're coming up financially successful and want to buy these things or not, or, they don't have the awareness of it, and that's kind of scary, but hopefully that'll change. Every time we get down, we're worried about whether the field's going to live or die down the road. we go to the book fair and we see, 20% of, well, on the average, 2,000 people or so come to the book fair, more actually, about 3,000. And about 20% of those are always brand new faces, younger kids that are collecting anything from anything to everything. So it's not a doomsday scenario, but I think popular culture items are going to be more of what we see, going forward for
Oh,
a
and
while.
that makes sense. That and sports, and it's just we saw that. I mean, at least I did. From it's like you were talking when you start comparing things, and you see that a LeBron, card, basketball card, unsigned, even sells for over $4 million.
Hmm.
It's a rare one. It's a 101 or whatever. Compared to you can't even tell me a Washington letter that's ever sold for $4 million. I mean, even one talking about crossing the
Yeah,
Potomac.
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
so it's kind of like when you start doing it, it's like,
We got to hit a break. David, I know you're on vacation. I'm not going to ask you to stay on unless you can. If not, I'll talk to you when you get home. Welcome back, book lovers. We are having a most interesting discussion on autographs and AI use in the future of the business. If you have questions for us right now, it's Saturday morning. It's what time is it? 11:30. We're in the home stretch. 888-575-4394. That's 888-575-4394. And since nobody answered the trivia contest question, I'm going to answer the first one, and that is AEG stands for All Edges Guilt. I asked Mike to come up with a trivia contest question or two, so I'm going to ask you to ask one of your questions in a minute. But if you want to reach us off air, you can reach me at 305-868-5515, or you can reach Mike off air at Autographs 101 on Facebook, on Instagram, and on TikTok. Also, if you apply to the group, make sure you give the reason for joining us because you heard it on the radio program. That would help us in a lot of ways track some things. So we'd appreciate that. Mike, one of the things that this host and the audience loves to hear and share are what we call buying and selling anecdotes or war stories. Take your pick. What are some of yours, like a Best Buy at a yard sale or an auction or, an interesting sale buy anecdotal situation? Go for it.
Absolutely. I remember one time I was in the city of Boston walking around with my family, and we were just there to get like some shopping done and some things like that around the holiday season. And we walked into this really cool antique old autograph store that I had never been to. And it was really cool. And I saw this old Satchel Paige signed Hall of Fame. It's a postcard from the Hall of Fame that's signed by Satchel Paige, who's since passed away a long time ago. I had never even seen one in person, actually,
Hmm.
of his autograph. So I went in there with my family, and my dad ended up buying it for me, and we bartered it down for a pretty good price for that at that time. And it was just such a really cool moment, just being in that store, and that store had a lot more history than maybe some of the other ones I had been to in the past as a young kid. So it was just such a really cool experience seeing some of the older autographs and some stuff from people who had died, and just kind of living through the history, I guess you'd say.
Any, did you shop at estate sales or garage sales at any time?
I have, yeah. I've been to definitely to a lot of garage sales. My mom used to frequent them all the time when I was a kid. Most of the time she wasn't picking up autographs, but I would tag along and yeah, definitely get some really cool sports cards or some stuff like that. A buddy of my dad when I was growing up too, he actually owned a spot at the flea market that he would go to, and he would sell, big boxes of 1980s, 1990s cards, and he had a lot of autographs and a big collection. When he passed away, my dad's friend had actually no one to give it to, and he didn't really like any of it, so he gave it to me. So I ended up with the whole, like, basically everything that was left over from the flea market he was trying to sell. I ended up getting it left down to me. So I had, like, it was the year probably like 2013, and I'm sitting there with packs from 1986 that are completely unopened, never even been touched.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you personally collect like, I did an appraisal on two collections that went to the Reagan and Bush libraries. One collection was every book by a president from Washington to Trump that was signed by them. He had the only other copy of Washington's book other than that was in the Smithsonian. He had all the Roosevelts, all the, this, that, and the others. It was a complete collection. And he had the same thing that was a complete collection of Article 2, full documents, nothing clipped, just representing Article 2 powers from Washington to Trump. Do you collect that kind of autograph personally, the rare presidential things, or are you more into the popular as we're discussing it?
I definitely have a couple in that vein, whether it's on the sports side or the political side. It's something that is expensive to collect, to be honest with you. Just being able to get some of those older autographs, they're very limited in terms of what was signed at the time. It's something that I've actually always wanted to get more and more into. I do have a couple political autographs in my collection, but I actually don't even really care from what side of the spectrum it's on. I just like having it in my collection, and I always
Yeah,
like
yeah.
seeing them online too when people post them. There's another group that I'm not involved with, but I am a member of. It's called Historical Autographs, and I've talked to those guys in the past, and they're really great guys who run it over there. It's really focused on like historical antique autographs, and they do a really great job. They've promoted us in the past, so I feel free to potentially plug them
Is
here.
that historical autographs? Is that Rising Camp John? Or am I just using because historical, he uses that word. It's not University Archives.
No, it's
No,
just a
okay.
Facebook group that a couple people started. It's smaller than Autographs 101, but it's also more niche. So there's a lot of carryover. A lot of those guys are in our group, and a lot of their group is in our group, and so yeah, they've been really great. And some of the stuff that they have posted is just really magical.
Um, okay. I see you are much more a collector than a buyer,
I would say
seller.
so. I mean, yeah,
Okay.
I think I'm much more of a collector slash, a community maker.
That, that
But I do
too.
sell.
That
Yeah.
too. But my question was more an after question based on that introductory statement. You're more a collector than a seller, but how active is your selling?
I would say I sell probably, a handful of times per year. I'm not really too crazy on selling just because I like collecting. I like having things, and it's always tough for me to part with things. So
What would be some of the things? Okay, it's okay. I understand that. I want it. It's mine. I don't want to sell it. I don't have to. It takes me a couple of minutes sometimes to realize that you don't have to sell. Most of the people that I'm interviewing, and I've done a couple of thousand of them, are more, the selling is the aspect of it. So it's hard. Sometimes I got to fine tune my questions on that. When you do sell, what was some of the things you've sold recently?
I've sold some sealed. They're referred to as like wax packs. Some like 80s, 90s boxes that I still had left over from that friend of my dad that I mentioned before.
How do you price an unopened pack of cards?
So
I'd
it's
be
definitely
scared
interesting.
shitless.
Well, it's really more of a gamble for the person buying it, right? Because you never know what's going to come out of it. It's also a gamble for me too, because
Well,
if I send it to them and I sell it to them for a set price, and they open it and they get a really great rookie card from that year that is worth more than any card I could have given them,
yeah, yeah.
right? So they're taking a gamble and I'm taking a gamble. But I usually use some of the most recent eBay data and things like that, so I can go into what's been sold on eBay.
Okay. Is it like, okay, if I want to know how many copies of a book were published, I could usually find that out. I gather you have an idea of, let's say it's a rare card, how many of them might have been made, but is there any way to track, does anyone track how many of them have been sold?
Yes, it's definitely more of a newer thing though. So there's obviously some stuff, and it just depends on what's available for information, right? It has to be public information. You know, if I call you up and I sell you something and no one ever hears about it on the internet or it doesn't make it out into the world, there's only but so much you can do to track things in reality.
What is an unopened? Okay, speculative. You're specking, they're specking. What would someone? You're talking about a pack, a single pack, not a box of packs. What did that go for? What do you?
Depends on the year.
All
Depends
right,
on the
let's use
year.
yours. 86.
That one, it's really not that expensive, just because in that time frame there was definitely a
Plus or
overproduction of
minus 50,
cards.
but plus or minus $50.
For the pack itself, on that one, under,
Under.
definitely.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just, I have an analytical mind and I try and understand it. And sometimes I ask questions that you can't answer. I understand that. But I was curious about that. I mean, I remember something about trading cards. I was on a radio program with a panel, and Tony Hyman was the guy who wrote the book Where to Buy and Sell Anything that they featured on QVC. And he came into the studio and he said, "What do you think is worth more? The unopened pack of Lone Ranger cards or the box that the Lone Ranger cards came in when it was sitting in the candy store?" And obviously the box, lo and behold, was worth more. Does it kind of go like that, or 86 boxes are too common?
It just depends on the year, and sometimes there's like, for instance, a lot of people would probably want like a 2000s pack of football cards because Tom Brady's rookie cards in that. Tom Brady was a seventh round pick. A sixth round pick, excuse me. I'm a Patriots fan. I can't have that miss out. But
I've never turned on a ball game of my own volition, but that's another story. I'll play any sport, but I will not watch. Um, okay. I have half a dozen albums, of baseball cards that we picked up 10 years ago, maybe more. Now, when was the last time we were in Live Oak? And they had been sitting around forever. These are from the 60s, 70s, and maybe into the 80s. I used to, yeah, I mean, if I recognize the name of a baseball player, it means the guy was an outstanding player because I don't watch it. So one day we had the cable guy come into the house, and on my desk where I was working on it, where I said, you know what, let me see something in the baseball card price guide. Let me try and tackle this. Well, what I realized is the baseball card price guide I had was too out of date to absolutely even think about using. But the guy comes in and looks at me and says, "Hey, those three are ghost cards." Ghost cards, is that a name you're familiar with? That's what he called them. They look like a hologram in silver, and he said they were worth about 100 to $150 each.
yes, yeah, I'm definitely familiar with that from like the 80s and 90s time frame. They would be, I would never really call them ghost cards, but yeah, they definitely have like
A
like
ghost
a
like
hologram type
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So my question to you is this. I want to go to a new bookstore or online somewhere, and I want to order or get the whatever it is, the 2025 baseball card price guide. Which is the easiest one to use? Because I'm going to have to do them one at a time, so to speak. So is there one that's set up better? Is Beckett and Estes still good, or is there something better?
I think Beckett's really always been a pretty good place to go. I also think that a lot of people put a lot of weight into eBay because you can go on eBay and check on things that have recently actually sold. So you can go in and see what people are actually paying.
I get that. And I'm going to throw in a caveat and we'll talk about it when we come back. I got a real problem when somebody comes up and says to me, look, this is what it sold for on eBay. I'll explain that afterwards. It's almost like the book dealer getting one price for the book and the autograph dealer getting the other price for the book. eBay is a world unto itself. We'll be back after these commercial words.
Now, here's Steve the Bookman Eisenstein.
Welcome back, book lovers. We are talking autographs with Mike Redler of Autographs 101 on Facebook. You can also reach him on TikTok and Instagram under Autographs 101. If you have questions in the remaining 13 minutes of the show, we've got 888 575 4394 for you to call. Mike, throw out a quick trivia question.
Absolutely. That sounds good to me. So I guess one of my trivia questions would be, which Beatles member has the rarest and most valuable autograph?
Well, that's a trick question, I think. It's obvious who it should be, but it's probably not. Am I correct on that?
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
okay. All right. Well, let's see what the audience can do. 888-575-4394. We will give you some kind of autograph reference book, okay? I got reference on everything. I'll give you one as a prize if you answer that question correctly. If you want to reach us off air, 305-868-5515. Mike, let's switch topics for a second here.
Sure.
It's related, but have you ever been asked, did you ever do appraisals on collections?
I've been asked to do some, and I've definitely been able to do some, but I wouldn't say I've done it professionally. I would say I've done it for people that have asked me to on a personal level, just based on knowing me and knowing my expertise within the hobby. A lot of people, they come to me because they know who I am and they see me run a big Facebook group, and so I've helped them. I've been able to use different data points to be able to pull together some stuff for them.
Do you charge for that?
Me personally, I have never charged for that just because, most of the time it's not really that much work for me. And so a lot of the times I consider it like kind of a service to people that I do, just like running a Facebook group. It's something I've considered charging for, and maybe in the future I'll make that into a service.
Well, okay, I'm gonna tell you, you absolutely should. With your skill and expertise, you've got half the appraisal battle finished. Um, What I can get up to 200. I'm in Florida, up north. That's considered low. I can get between 150 and 250 an hour for my appraisal time. I have worked with AIS, Appraisers International Society, um, over the years. Um, they're a phenomenal group, and before 20, I've done appraisals. I think I did my first appraisal somewhere around 1983, 82. Somewhere well, this show will be 11 years old, so in the last 9 years, I would say, I'm wound up, looking for places in the first year or two to talk about the show, get guests, get the show promoted. One day, I don't even know how I got there. I got into an AIS chat room, Appraisers International chat room. And what are these guys talking about? 13th century papal jewelry. I said, I don't know who you guys are, but if you in your group are talking about 13th century papal jewelry, I'm interested. And we hooked up after that. They've been probably the most frequent guest on the show, AIS. What I learned in 2018 was the IRS rules have changed dramatically. There used to be no requirements for an appraisal. What you do, there's a difference between appraising and evaluating. If I do an appraisal, I'm creating a legal document that you can use for whatever we decide, you as the client decide, is the stated purpose or purposes of that appraisal. Once I do an appraisal, I have to sign something that says I have no interest, past, present, or prospective in this material, and my fees are not contingent on the valuation, etc. What you have done in the past, even though you don't charge for it, would be considered more like an evaluator seller, because you're not creating a legal document, you're giving them your professional knowledge, and in exchange for that, they're usually saying, okay, you have the exclusive to sell it for us, whatever it might be. But if you do decide, and especially because you're up north, you can probably get $300 to $500 an hour up there once you build your reputation and you get a following in it. I would recommend you take the course with AIS, the Appraisers International Society. There are other groups, but I always say learn from the best at AIS. And also, when the IRS has questions, they go to AIS. Ellie Rosen has been involved in major IRS tax cases, and has written a book on it. So if you do decide down the road, think about that. It's a great way, to get paid to evaluate other people's stuff. We both do it for fun, pleasure, and as a goodwill gesture. I do that all the time. But when someone calls me up like this client did, for, doing these two appraisals, I have to say we had something like 90 hours of billing time. It was quite the appraisal and quite lucrative. Just food for thought.
That sounds great to me.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, well, it sounds like you're doing really well in AI. I can only imagine, what you're involved with and, what goes on with that. If you're using AI and you're hiring it's got to be a major project. Are you allowed? I always know enough to ask these questions on confidentiality and the anonymity type situations. Is there anything that you are doing in AI for other clients that's kind of like really interesting that you can talk about,
Absolutely.
in another field? We got a couple of minutes left. What are some of the projects besides autographs that you are working on?
So we do a lot of app development, web development. So we go into businesses to essentially find out what their internal systems are, maybe what they're lacking, and where their data entry points are. We're able to build out full applications for them that they can use. You think about some of the tools that you might use to be able to, maybe input data, build out a database for them, stuff like that. I think one of the coolest things that we do for people, for instance, is like I'll use a barbershop for an example. For barbershops that maybe have, they get calls to book appointments, or other businesses that get incoming calls. We can make you an AI receptionist.
Wow.
So we make a receptionist that's completely AI. AI answers the phone. It basically is able to dictate, okay, ask the series of questions that we have it ask, but it's also able to think on the fly. And it will, book appointments and then put it on someone's calendar. It will, answer all their questions. It'll direct them to the website. It's very engaging as well. And so rather than having to pay someone to answer a phone call, you can obviously have AI do it now, and we build that out.
Okay, so I know how much antique barber poles are worth. How much would it cost to set up an AI system for a barber shop?
A couple $1,000s, give or take. Nothing too crazy, but it's a one-time investment. And usually, if you're going to pay someone to be a receptionist, you're going to have to pay them hourly.
Oh yeah. No,
Yeah.
I understand that aspect of it. And what about maintenance? Is there maintenance required on a program like that?
We definitely do have retainers for maintenance, on a monthly basis for us to be able to be available. You call us and we start fixing your problem right away. We also offer approaches where it's slightly more expensive. However, you can call us on a case by case basis. I would say it's kind of like anything else you get insurance for, right? You don't always need it, but when you don't have it and you need it, it's going to cost you more to fix your problem than if you had it already, right?
Okay, so, and I'm just curious about this because, like I said, I don't know how to do it, but I know how to think. Is one of your systems like one of these concierge type service things that if you have something that goes wrong, you call us, we fix it. But is there a way for the system to let you know that something went wrong and they pay an additional service for that?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Oh,
definitely. So I mean, it can happen from both sides, right? You might have someone that comes into your business and says, "Hey, when I called the AI line or I called your phone line and I think it might have been AI and it said something like this and it wasn't right." Then you find out through word of mouth. But then there's also, if there's technical problems, right? A system's down or something like that, we'll be prompted with errors and we'll be able to figure it out as well.
was this, you're 29 years old, was this your major in college? What did you major in?
So I ended up graduating with a degree in computer technology, but it really was just enough to become a help desk guy. So I was really going to be into help desk. I ended up getting into sales. I've been in sales for a long time now. I'm still in sales, but I've always just had a passion for technology. And with the rise of I decided that I would hear a lot about it on the news. I'm sure you have as well.
Oh,
AI is taking jobs and this and that. But for me, when I see something like that, I dive head in. I go head first.
I have a friend that's a photographer, professional, models, all that stuff like that. He came over the other day and showed us a magazine article on how AI is going to decimate the model, the photography, the makeup industry related to all that. I couldn't believe it. It made sense. Do I see a pet there?
Yes, yes.
Who? What? I see ears. Dog, cat. Looks like a dog.
He's a dog. Yeah, he's
Hi,
a dog.
puppy. Ah, that's
Yeah,
cool.
ready? I can.
Mike, we got about 2 minutes left in this segment, and then we get taken off the air, so to speak. I would love to have you on again multiple times. You have all kinds of things going on, and you are definitely, you know, what I would call a permanent guest status. Whenever you have something you want to get out, or you just want to get in and say, whatever, you are welcome to be a guest on the show anytime. I'm starting to go back in time and bring people on that I haven't had in a long time, but you are always welcome. I mean, this has been just the most amazing 2 hours. It's like it flew.
It did
And
fly.
thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. I hope that, this leads to people contacting you. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it works out a month later or something. But we'll see what happens if people heard it and they're joining the group. Remember, if you're going to join Autographs 101 today and you heard about it here, say you heard about it on the radio program. And on that note, I want to say thank you very much, Mike. I'm looking forward to having you on again. Um, I always like to close the show with this kind of with this closing. If Roy Rogers and Dale Evans were book dealers, we'd be singing happy book sales and buys to you till we meet again, and Nellie Bell would be the bookmobile. Ciao for now.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you, Captain Hook. We'll see you guys next week. Ciao, ciao.